Okay, so today is Thursday, April the 8th, and we are continuing our nerd meeting on different conditions. And we've left, well,
I
we
love
added,
that term.
yeah. So we left off, we added autoimmune and Hashimoto's. So I was going to go over some of that. Generally, it presents with high TPO and thyroid antibodies. So this is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. Conditions, where it'll affect memory, temperature, stress, diet, hair, weight, could have nodules, weight gain. History, that's a toxicity of the thyroid. I would look at metal amalgams, heavy metal in general, maybe vaccination, metal, playing with mercury. That's never a good idea. Thermometer, mercury, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what some of us used to do in our spare time. Okay. So it really isn't localized unless you have a goiter. It can be pretty much systemic. So, we have had good reports about using the total gut restoration to help with the inflammation, the leakiness. Something that I had recommended in the past that seemed to be really good was the standard process thyrotropin, PMG. And I think, gluten might be a consideration. Again, that might go back to the leakiness of the gut.
Tracy, are you saying that this thyrotropin is good for goiters?
Yes, I would say any type of thyroid issue, and I actually had this open. That's not the particular one. Card here. I've got one loaded in here. It's, even though it says that it has removed the thyroxine, and Dr. Kev, you can probably chime in on this because it's been a while since I've used this particular product. I guess it's not going to let me look at it now. But even though it has the thyroxine removed, the protomorphogens are supposed to be cellular substances that will help with repair of a specific gland or organ. Let's see if I can get back to it if it's not going to show.
Can we purchase that without it? No, Tracy, can we purchase that direct from a pharmacy, or do we have to go through a provider to get it?
You can get it at Abrams Royal Pharmacy. They're in Dallas at the intersection of Abrams and Royal.
That's too far to drive.
There are lots of practitioners all over the place that sell standard process. Yeah. And they could definitely get it for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, well, I don't.
I've had a goiter since.
Go ahead.
I've had a goiter since 1990, and I don't want to have it surgically removed because it's sitting right there on the isthmus of the thyroid. Mm-hmm. And I've used iodoral and other iodine, Lugol's iodine products, but sometimes it'll go down, but it looks like I've got It looked like a guy in drag, basically, with this big goiter, on the middle of my throat.
Yeah, and I had a goiter. This was before I was in functional medicine, and they irradiated me and they cut it out and they really messed me up. So I don't advise going that route. If I had it all to do over again, um, I would, definitely use thyrotrophin, use the glandulars. Um, you can, get someone to draw your blood and just keep an eye on it with your levels. So the goiter may never leave, but you can keep your thyroid levels so that they're healthier, so you don't develop other symptoms. And they recommend
Does
here,
any of that stuff also help?
I was just going to say, the products they recommend to take with the thyrotropin is Catalin, which is kind of like their natural whole food, whole vitamin, hypothalamus, which is the master gland, and then some trace minerals, including B12. So, that'll get you, I believe the trace minerals have some iodine in there, but they have a lot of other ones. And the thyroid is very dependent on minerals.
Does that also help with, oh, what do they call those, nodules? Is that what they are in the
Yes,
thyroid?
yes. Yeah, because it's more, a thyroid that's not functioning correct. Thyroid or all glands will swell when they're trying to absorb more nutrients. And then the nodules is when they don't have good circulation, good drainage. So it's a cascade of events. First they swell, then they get nodules, and then they begin to um, atrophy. So that's why very often the course that a gland will uh, take when you're monitoring with blood work is it will go hyper and then it will go hypo. So it's speeding up to try to get what it needs. If you don't give it what it needs, then it slows down and then eventually stops. One thing I don't see that's in this trace minerals is selenium, which really you should have. Selenium is important for thyroid function. Um, there was another product I was going to check out is the T150, and I believe that Numedica has it. Let me see if Numedica. I don't know if I still have an account with them or not. Brother, I don't know. Been so long. No, nothing's popping up. Oh, boogers. I'll have to call them, but might be able to find it on Amazon. And you're not supposed to get these doctor supplements on Amazon, but unfortunately, some of them find their way there. T150 supplement.
And in that case, you never know how long they've been sitting in a warehouse, unregulated temperature. So you really never know what you're getting.
Exactly. Okay, so pure encapsulations. Looks like they're on there. Some of them will say thyroid support. What you want to find is, I don't see the T150. See, the FDA regulates thyroid pretty tightly. And what you want is desiccated thyroid. Well, you start out with a thyroid support with all the nutrients in it and then hope that your thyroid kicks back in. But if you lose thyroid function, desiccated thyroid is what you need. Oh, go away. All right, New Zealand grass-fed collagen. Oh, now sometimes like standard process,
I use that.
you use the New Zealand grass-fed or.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna check out to see. Yeah, so what I was gonna say is that just because it's on here, sometimes you go to click on it to order it and it says, oh, we're sold out here, use this brand instead. And it's really a bait and switch. They never had it in the first place. They're just, trying to, pull you in. And I'm not really, besides beef liver, no, that's not what let's see what this New Zealand grass-fed liver. Okay, so I'm still not seeing the thyroid on that. Cystofed thymus. And it won't be long before, the FDA goes after all desiccated thyroid. I clearly put thyroid in there, but it's giving me everything but thyroxine, thyroid function.
I tried desiccated thyroid and I did not feel well on it at all. So I've been on compounded T3.
Yeah.
And Abrams fills that.
Okay. Yeah,
but I still have a goiter.
Yeah. Well, and supposedly, it is the iodine that caused the lack of iodine that caused the goiter in the first place. Now, whether it's reversible or not, depends on who you listen to. I've heard both sides. I've heard, both. There's some homeopathic cleanses. Pecana is a really good one. You might look into. Abrams used to sell Pecana. I don't know if they do anymore, but they had some good lymphatic cleanses. They might have. I think they even had a Apostrum, which was a thyroid cleanse. So that might be worth looking into.
What was that again?
Apostrum, STRUM was the name of their thyroid homeopathic. Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to go through each of these and see. They're mixing up beef liver and thyroid stuff. So you have to be careful. Okay. All right. So back to, so different thyroid supports. And I think you can put Hashimoto's in resistance in it, but it's always kind of just lurking in the background. Not resistance. What do you call that? Remission. And I have had good, feedback from practitioners. They were going to do a clinical trial. On Hashimoto specifically with the TGR, but I have not heard where that's at. I think right now with the acquisition of Novozyme, they're going to reprioritize all of the R&D. So it might be a couple months before we know exactly what they're working on. So Dr. Kev, have you worked with someone with Hashimoto's before?
Not specifically diagnosed, but yes, with somebody who has hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and you have hypothyroidism, with a very high TSH, but you want to be sure and check the TPO and the antibodies to see if it's a full-blown autoimmune hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy,
here's
what
a
is
question.
TPO?
Let me see if I remember. I'm taxing my brain too hard here. TPO, thyroid definition. Picture of the okay, thyroid peroxidase is an enzyme made in the thyroid gland that is important in the production of thyroid hormone. TPO is found in thyroid follicle cells where it converts the thyroid hormone T4 to T3. So what do high levels indicate? Well, a high level of thyroid peroxidase means that a patient has Graves' disease or Hashimoto's. And in a patient who has hypothyroidism, high TPO is indicative of Hashimoto's. In a hyperthyroid patient, the high TPO is indicative of Graves' disease. Okay. So there is the difference. And like I said before, I've seen people go from Graves to Hashimoto's as the thyroid gland basically atrophies. So, okay. Okay.
So now, if you were to theoretically get the immune system regulating properly again, then the autoimmunity would go away. Is that correct?
Yes, the idea is, that you have to stop the leaky gut. You have to, maybe use Mega IgG 2000 to help with some of the circulating antibodies that are in the gut, and then give it enough time so that the enough of those antibodies will leave circulation, that they're not continually being generated. Because what they will do is they will attack the thyroid gland, which further leads to its demise. And then the thought is can attack some heart valves and some other things. I'd have to look into that and see if that's hearsay or if that is actually true. Let's see, what do
Now, following along with that question then, if you were to do the gut restoration, heal up the gut so that the food's not leaking through, the immune system is not as stressed trying to attack the food, thereby attacking your own self, then you would throw in the Mega Immune to start help regulating all of that. Would that be correct?
Yes, because you're optimizing your immune cells. So yes, that would help.
Okay, sounds good. That's what I was thinking. Now, if you were to take occasional megaviron just for the sake of helping the immune system, not just because you're sick, what do you think about that?
I would say it's untested. I'm not sure that we know the answer to that question. For someone, if they don't have any immune dysregulation, I don't like to recommend things that don't are not called for. But if there is some immune dysregulation, I think by if you're monitoring blood work and really keeping an eye on what's going on, that would be the beginning stages of testing that long term. But at this point, it's only recommended, as a prophylactic for flu and cold season. But I would say those who are studying the immune system specifically, it's worth looking at.
That sounds interesting. The reason why I was thinking about it is because I thought if they said take it 14 days, then it probably needs, or 15 in the bottle's case, it probably needs the constant reminder of it every day versus just that one single day. Like it may not be as therapeutically effective.
Well, the 15-day protocol is for the megavirin. Maybe I misheard you. I thought we were talking about the megamune, which is the 3 or 4 month prophylactic.
Yeah, I had switched over to the megavirin towards the end, but yeah, I did not make that clear.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm, cautiously, working with different people on using the megavirin for other things, such as Lyme disease, herpes, EBV, trying to see, really how effective it might be with other, viruses and rickettsia. But the bottom line is we really don't know. Yeah, so I would have to do some more digging to see as far as the high TPO and thyroid antibodies. I mean, there's some indication here about fertility, or infertility, but as far as I don't know, attacking heart valves or something, that I'm not sure. But do thyroid heart attack heart valves? Let's see. Let's see. Dr.
Tracy, what about people who don't have thyroid glands anymore?
Well, speaking as one of those individuals, you have to take replacement thyroid hormone and, watch out for all the things, all the symptoms of low thyroid. Somehow the body compensates for not having that thyroid hormone, whether it's, converting thyroid hormone, extracellularly. Um, I'm not sure they really even know how that works, but I have been doing it for 35 years, taking a thyroid prescription, and the idea is, you can't get too stressed, you can't get too hungry, you can't get too hot, you can't get too cold, and as you know, I do live a perfect life, and I don't do any of those things. That was LOL.
As all the rest of us do.
Exactly. So yeah, easier said than done. Okay, so anything else as far as Hashimoto's and autoimmune? Guess we could add here the Graves part of it. Because I had Graves and then I had Hashimoto's. Well, I still have Hashimoto's. Okay, and this is high TPO hyperthyroid. Okay.
So Tracy, when they're testing, if you have the Hashimoto's antibodies, is that the TPO test?
Actually, there's two.
In the blood work?
The peroxidase is a separate test from the actual thyroid antibody test. So when you do a thyroid panel, you would do, of course, TSH, free T3, free T4, TPO, thyroid antibody, and reverse T3. So, all right. That would be considered a complete panel for looking for Graves or Hashimoto's. Okay. So anything else on those two thyroid autoimmune diseases?
No, but I'm looking at brain fog underneath bloating,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing in there, and I have issues with that. So I would love for you to address that if we can.
Yeah. So that's next on our list. You know, and presentation wise, certainly any kind of thyroid issue, any kind of yeast issue, hormone, neurotransmitter, gut in general. Dr. Kev, can you think of any more to add to that?
Vitamin and mineral.
Okay. So,
And then, of course, the brain function itself. So if you're stressed out and stuck in that stressed state, you are going to have brain fog because your brain is running out of resources. And that's where the whole good food, good sleep thing comes in.
right. Okay. Good. So in considerations, I mean, that's a lot of things that can contribute to that. So I would say more on the recommendation, looking at, TGR, going through the gut, doing the whole thyroid workup, hormone, I'll say hormone neural, vitamin, and lifestyle. All those are going to be considerations. Anything to add on the recommendations, Dr. Kev?
Yes, adjustments.
Yes.
Uh, Other than that, no, just the standard stuff, simple stuff,
Mhm.
like eating good and quite literally sleeping good. Because some of the patients I take care of, how long do you give your body how long do you give your body to be able to sleep? And it's like, oh, 4 or 5 hours. Well, that's not enough. So
Exactly.
simple stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Super.
I have to also say that from the studying that I've been doing with cellular detox, that is integral to almost every one of these problems that people have. We've
Mhm.
got to get those heavy metals out of the cells.
Yep. Super. Time expectancy, depending on how long you've had it, I think, the typical recommendation is for every year that you have had an issue, plan on a month of healing. So if this has been going on 12 years, you're looking at, a year at a year to recover. So we'll put that down as an example. One year of focused treatment. Okay. Any comments, additions or omissions?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, next here on the list, we have a blank space is C. diff. So we're talking about Clostridia difficile. This is, generally an issue that individuals will usually find out from their doctor or functional doctor that they have a test coming back. They may not even know that they have C. diff. Sometimes if they have been in a hospital, they may contract C. diff. Sometimes if they've traveled abroad. So there's different ways of finding this out. But usually, you're not going to just know that you have a C. diff unless you have been to the hospital or the doctor in that regard. Your presentation wise, I think most would be diarrhea is going to be the first clue. It doesn't look like it's spelled right. And the recommendation, not just for C. diff, but for any overgrowth, what the microbiome lab's recommendation is to restore flora at breakfast, 2 megaspore at lunch, and 2 HU58 at dinner. And this is called a competitive exclusion protocol. And what we're doing is excluding or pushing out the pathogen by overwhelming it, outproducing it, starving it out of the environment. And that is the simplest and gentlest approach without using a killing protocol. If we can do it without the killing protocol, the person is going to have less collateral damage. If they have to go into a killing protocol, biocidin is probably the gentlest. And then there's other, of course, more aggressive, was it ADP, which is the concentrated oregano from Biotics.
A company called Supreme Nutrition has a lot of different herbs for that have antimicrobial effects, like rosemary or chrysanthemum or golden seal, a bunch of those types.
Okay, my antimicrobials, super. And, throwing everything at it as far as all 3 of those probiotics every day consistently should be good 2 to 3 months. And we've had good results doing that. So.
Okay, now I'm trying to imagine me doing that. How would that work?
There's not going to be an overdose effect. And certainly if someone has any overgrowth, candida, C. diff, MRSA, E. coli, or organism that shows up in the biome effects, this would be the approach to take to push it out naturally without having to do, again, a harsh killing protocol.
Okay, that does make sense. In terms of being super sensitive to the megaspore already, that's what I was thinking of.
Well, you've been trying to titrate up slowly And so you're changing the strategy of instead of titrating up slowly, going in more for a kind of forcing the issue.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't think that I could be able to do it right now in terms of work, but if I had, say, a month or something, then I think it would be a possibility, because otherwise I'll just be laying down all day.
Right. Right. So the thought there is more, it's not the immune dysregulation as it is your, forcing out a pathogen that is preventing the immune system from functioning properly. So it's just a different approach.
No, that makes sense. So what you, in a sense, what you're saying, or at least what I'm hearing you say, is when, or I did the BioMFX test, nothing really showed up abnormal. So there's no real indication of doing the big, massive push. Now, if I were to go to Mexico and get Montezuma's Revenge, then that would be something, because I already have diarrhea, throwing up, and all those other symptoms. So I might as well feel bad while I'm feeling bad by taking Megaspore, HU58, and RestoraFlor.
Yes, there you go. I think that's a plan.
Okay, sounds good.
How do you spell diarrhea? It does not look right, and this does not have spell check on it.
Diarrhea.
DIA
Diarrhea. RHEA. There's 2 R's.
Oh, that's what's going on. Okay, that still doesn't look right though. Oh no, maybe there's no A there. Nope. No. There's some days spelling doesn't work for me. Okay. Depression. A lot of different potential causes for that. Again, if we, take into consideration that it can be gut, thyroid, yeast, hormones, which we, neurotransmitters. Just physiologically, I'll add adjustment in there because it could be just things are out of place. Any other?
Someone just took your last cookie.
Stress, crisis. So it can be very organic reasons, not just physiological. Politics, that's depressing. We hit all of the obvious ones. Okay, and then what do we do about it? Okay, so of course we want to look at the gut and check hormones, neuros, just basic health. Sometimes it can be, again, vitamin mineral imbalance. Magnesium is an amazing mineral. Sometimes we're depressed because we're anxious, or we're our muscles, we're achy or in pain. So any other considerations or recommendations on what you would check for to get to the bottom of a depression?
How much they move? Are they getting any physical exercise?
Excellent. Yeah. There's a great effect of endorphin tripping, we call it sometimes, through exercise. And when you get used to that and then you stop exercising, you can feel depressed. I think we have to consider socialization. You know, have we isolated ourselves? And don't have, you know,
Light exposure.
yeah, light, very good. Full spectrum. Yeah, and we should look at environment in general, you know, considering EMF. Some people live under transformers. That's got to be depressing. Oh, what'd I do? I was going to put toxins, like in, you know, industrial toxins, you know, where you live. Has a lot to do with it. Water, food.
Yeah, fluoride.
Mhm. Yeah. Or, you know, the other halogens too, bromide, chloride. Oh, yeah, that triggered a memory too. If you put bromide and chlorine in your hot tub or swimming pool, you want to really check your thyroid because it binds up your iodine. So these halogens will compete for binding sites with iodine on your thyroid. So that might explain if you kind of go back in history and try to figure out when you had a thyroid crisis, if it had anything to do with that year you took water aerobics or whatever. Okay. Anything else? Hmm.
That's a good list.
Yeah. Okay. And this, of course, what I'm considering here, this is short term. You know, if a different consideration has to be taken into account, you know, if we're looking at anything long term. And you know what, you know, I have to throw in here is that there's a lot more people than we want to know about that have had abuse as a child or sexual molestation that will fester for years and cause, you know, long-term chronic depressions. Okay, so I think we have time for one more. Look at diabetes. Now this we're looking at type 2. Of course, type 1 is generally congenital. And a lot of it has to do with obesity, where it's controllable by diet. And some of the considerations we want to look at, is vitamin K2 deficiency.
Can you please tie that in? I don't understand that connection. Thanks.
Yeah. So what we have learned, there's some publications out there that show that when there is calcium deposition on the beta cells of the pancreas, there's an insufficient production of insulin. So the K2 deficiency is in the cycle of metabolic endotoxemia. The gut bacteria are not producing enough K2. You can also get K2 deficiency from lack of sunlight, lack of good diet, too much vitamin D. So there's several things that would cause a K2 deficiency. But here we're looking specifically at the beta cell pancreatic function that's affected by, there's actually K2 receptors in the pancreas. And so there is a direct correlation of lack of K2 and diabetes. Of course, other considerations, just, actually consuming too much sugar, which is almost, directly proportional to mineral deficiency. Any other considerations? I think, leaky gut is a given because of the inflammation. That's going to really affect all secreting glands. Any others that you can think of?
I was actually watching a fascinating presentation from one of Pampa's conferences where a physician was talking about how, as doctors, they're mismanaging diabetes with all of the insulin. And
Mhm.
actually, if they would start their patients doing intermittent fasting, where they go for increasing increasing their time of fasting, that the body will then naturally start to consume the excess sugar, and I guess will adjust the insulin levels. And it was quite interesting because I had never heard anybody talk about it that way. They said that he feels like they're actually making the diabetes worse by putting them on more and more and more insulin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And certainly the more we return, intermittent fasting, which, there we're talking about really mimicking more ancestral behavior. The idea that we have 3 square meals a day exactly at 6 o'clock noon and 6 p.m. Is not really natural to our species. We were hunters and foragers, and I think there was the whole idea, the cycling, fasting and feasting is more natural than having things provided on a schedule. I don't know if I expressed that, but hopefully you kind of follow the line of thought there.
Yes.
So vitamin, mineral sufficiency. And of course, diet is important. Everybody has their own perspective, I still advocate for the blood type diet. There are certain genetic predispositions. Certain people are more sensitive to lectins in foods than other people. So I like to, pay attention to that. Just put lectin consideration.
Which blood type is more sensitive to that?
Blood type A is more, well, let's see. A and O are both going to have levels of diabetes, but for generally, different reasons. A's are more susceptible to stress, shutting glands and organs down. O's, sugar and refined flour, does not work well with them at all. But with both of them, I would still remove dairy, wheat, sugar, just right off the bat. Then I would fine tune it to their blood type specific lectins. But those across the board, everyone struggles with.
So the excuse me, because it's the oldest blood form, all these dairy, wheat, and sugar, which came from our agrarian society.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what the logic is as to why that?
Yes.
When I was younger, my uncle, I don't know what his blood type was, but he loved tomatoes and he ate them every day at meals. And he always complained about having stomach issues. And I never made that connection until recently, when there's been all of this information out there about lectins and tomatoes and nightshades and such as that. Thought that was very interesting that he suffered from gut issues all his life, probably because he ate tomatoes every day.
I believe it. Yeah. And we look at, depending on where you live, between, spaghetti and ketchup and pizza, and I mean, what food doesn't contain some kind of tomato on it, for the standard American diet? And that's, why we try to move away from that. But for A's, tomatoes aren't a big deal. Okay, well, I think we need to wrap up. It's close to the end of the hour, and I want to thank you both for joining me today and your participation. And we will be back next week, same bat time, same bat station. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tracy, thank
Thanks.
you. Your knowledge is amazing. And I'd like to make an appointment to talk to you and just some follow-up.
That sounds
if
great.
not this week, maybe next week.
Super.
Thank
well,
you.
I'll get my calendar
Bye.
to you and we'll get you on there. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.